Let us pray.
Let us put ourselves in the holy presence of God, in the name of the Father, and Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, grant that I may always allow myself to be guided by you, always follow your plans, and perfectly accomplish your holy will. Grant that in all things, great and small, today and all the days of my life, I may do whatever you require of me. Help me to respond to the slightest prompting of your grace, so that I may be your trustworthy instrument for your honor. May your will be done in time and in eternity by me, in me, and through me. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Okay, thank you, Ronald, for that nice opening prayer. Good noon, everyone.
Good
Good
afternoon, Miss.
Are you in
afternoon.
school right now? Are you in the classroom or in the school campus?
No, miss.
No, Miss, we're at home.
Some of you are staying at home, but there are also others who are in school or who are staying in our classroom. How many of you are
They
in
are
class
online, miss.
now? How many of you are inside the classroom now? Wala ra. Wala ra. So all of you are staying at home. All our subjects
Yes,
today
miss.
Yes, miss.
okay, are having online classes. Okay. So, mag-start ta sa pag-discuss sa atong first mastery test. Do you have any questions pertaining to the first mastery test? So, one to... Wait, ha? 1 to 28, puro theory na, no? So, we started with number 29 for the problem solving. So the question in number 9 is how much is the total cost of the jobs completed in July? So that is looking actually for your cost of goods manufactured. Then in number 30, this is using the high and low points method. So among the the cost given in number 30, choose the one with the highest cost and also the lowest cost. But you will notice in this number 30, the lowest cost actually is 75,000 pesos, not the 80,000. But if you look at the corresponding number of DLRs at 75,000 na cost, I think the DLRs there is 3,000, which is not the lowest activity level. Our lowest activity level is 2,500 DLRs, not the 3,000 DLRs. That's why uh, whenever the lowest cost doesn't have the lowest activity level, you choose the one with the lowest activity level. So don't choose the 3,000 DLRs because the cost 3,000 DLRs because that 3,000 is not the lowest activity level. So what prevails is not the lowest cost but the lowest activity level. That's why we use the 2,500 DLRs whose cost is 80,000, the second to the lowest cost. So what prevails is the activity level. So highest cost minus the lowest cost gives you the differential cost of 20,000. So when we say differential cost, that is the difference between two amounts, the highest cost and the lowest cost. So 20,000 ang differential cost, you divide it by the difference in activity level or the difference in DLRs, which is 2,500 DLRs equals the variable cost rate is 8 pesos per direct labor hour. So that is the answer to number 30. Then in number 31, we are asked to get the direct material cost contained in your work in process N. So what we did is get the total debits to work in process. So that includes work in process beginning balance of 12,000 plus direct materials used of 40,000 plus direct labor of 30,000 plus applied overhead of 27,000. Therefore, the total debits to work in process is 109,000, which is your CJPIP, cost of goods placed into process, minus the credit to work in process, which is transferred to finished goods inventory account, 100,000. So total debits, 109,000, minus the credits of 100,000 will give you the balancing figure of 9,000 pesos, which represents the work in process balance N. So the 9,000 has the following breakdown. Applied overhead given at 2,250. So to get the direct labor cost, divide the overhead contained work in process N to 250, divide it by the predetermined overhead rate of 90% based on DL cost. That's why the direct labor cost contained in your work in process N is 2,500. So adding 25 and 2,250 will give you the total conversion cost of 4,750, which is part of the 9,000 pesos. So deduct 4,750 from 9,000, the balance is 4,250, which is the direct material cost contained in your work in process N, isn't it?
Yes,
Yes,
miss.
miss.
Okay, then in number 32, the applied overhead is computed by multiplying the 2.55 nga overhead rate by 105,000 direct labor hours. So you get the applied overhead of 267,750, which is greater than the actual overhead of 265,500. Therefore, the difference of 2,250 is the over applied overhead. Okay, you have there the answers also for number 35 and number 36. So are there any questions pertaining to 35 and 36? So with number 38,
None so far, miss.
okay, let's go to the next sheet for the computation for number 40. Atong padakaan ha para makita or mabasa dayon. So sa number 43, you have to know the status for each job so that you will know what to answer for number 43, number 44, and number 45. So you know already in what number were you able to get the correct answer? In what number were you able to get the wrong answer? and why your answer was wrong by comparing it with the solution given here. So, nata sa 46, naasad ang 47, yeah, sa number 48, to get the total cost, add cost last month and cost this month. Then number 49, pila man ang new CGS or the adjusted cost of goods sold after deducting over applied overhead of 6,000. Then number 50, how to get the total manufacturing cost or the total production costs. So any questions for number 43 up to 50?
None so far, Miss.
So let's proceed to number 56 to 60. So atong i-enlarge ang font size. Okay, so number 56, that is using the high and low points method. So get the difference in cost and divide it by the difference in activity level, which is expressed in terms of DLR. So the variable cost rate is 4 pesos per direct labor hour. Then number 57 is how to get the amount of sales. So get first your cost of goods sold by working upwards, downwards rather. So cost of goods manufactured plus FGI beginning minus FGI end equals CGS. Add to your cost of goods sold the gross profit, and you will get the total sales of 11,700,000. For number 58, this is how we computed the direct material cost of job 101. It's direct labor cost and applied overhead. So the total cost of job 101 is 215,200. Since we added the work in process beginning or cost last month with the materials, labor, and overhead added this month. Then in number 59, how to get the marginal cost of the 9th unit. Marginal cost is the increase in cost for every increase in unit produced. So pila man ang additional cost or marginal cost of the 9th unit. So you get first the total cost of producing 9 units by multiplying 33.75 by 9 units. So you'll get the total cost of 9 units produced, 303.75. If they produced 8 units, the unit cost is 34.75. So times 8 units produced, so the total cost of producing 8 units is 278. So 303.75 minus 278. Therefore, the increase in cost for the 9th unit or for the increase of one more unit is 25.75. And lastly, for number 60, how much is the prime cost of job number 6? The prime cost is the sum of direct materials used and direct labor cost. So get the prime cost of only job number 6. Some of you obtain the prime cost of all the jobs. Pero ang gipangutana manggod, pila ang prime cost ni job number 6 lang. Okay? So that is why the answer is 57,250. So is that understood?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, Miss.
Okay, so now we go to chapter 7, which is about ABC. Mag-stop sa ako og present, ha? Then I will show the answers for Excel. Ay, sa Word. Ay. Okay. So I'd like to start with problem 7E. Because that is the simplest problem to illustrate the calculation of activity-based overhead rate. Okay, that one. Maklaro ra ba ang computations on the screen?
Yes,
Read up.
Miss.
Okay, sige. Let's go over with the data for problem 7E. You have to fill in the blanks there in your book. So Kinza Company uses activity-based costing or ABC to compute the unit product cost for external financial reports. The company manufactures two products, the regular model and the super model. During the coming year, the company expects to produce 10,000 units of the regular model and 2,500 units of the super model. Listed below are the selected data relating to the coming year. Compute the overhead cost per unit for each product by filling in the missing data in the schedules provided below. So we have 4 activity centers. And the one enclosed in parentheses is their cost driver. When we say cost driver, that refers to anything that drives costs to be incurred. So for labor-related activity, ang iyang cost driver is direct labor hours. And the estimated overhead for this first activity is 40,000 pesos. For machine setups, the cost driver is number of setups with a total overhead estimated at 210,000. 210,000 ba ang nasa book or lain nga amount? For machine setup, 210,000.
240,000, Miss.
Oh, 240. So kindly change the 4 to 1. Sa machine setups, ang estimated overhead is 210,000 pesos, which is the amount reflected below. Kanarang sa taas is a typo error. So change 240,000 to 210,000. Okay, product testing. The cost driver is number of tests. So the estimated overhead is 300,000 pesos. And for the last activity, general factory, with the cost driver of machine hours, estimated overhead for the general factory is 450,000. Add all, pila man ang estimated overhead for the entire year, or the total cost of overhead for the entire year. What you have is 2 million, right? In your book.
Yes, Miss.
But if you add 40,000, 210,000, 300,000, and 450,000, the total must be
1 million, Miss.
1 million. So typo error ng total amount nga 2 million. It should be changed to 1 million pesos. Okay, look at the right-hand side. For the assignment of the cost driver. Sa labor-related activity, they have 5,000 DLRs, of which ang 4,000 DLRs ana is assigned to the regular model. The remaining 1,000 DLRs is assigned to the super model. For machine setups, they have 700 setups, of which 250 setups is allocated to the regular model. The remaining 450 setups is assigned to the super model. For product testing, they have 4,000 tests, of which 3,200 tests is allocated to the regular model. The remaining 800 tests is allocated to the super model. What you have in your book, nanubra og usa ka zero. So cancel the last zero. Dapat 800 tests ra kang super model. So make the correction. Then for the general factory, with 22,500 machine hours as the cost driver, so they allocated 15,000 machine hours for the regular model, and the remaining 7,500 machine hours for the super model. So now let's compute ABOR, activity-based overhead rate. For labor-related, divide 40,000 by 5,000 direct labor hours equals activity-based overhead rate or ABOR ni LR or labor-related is 8 pesos per DLR. For machine setups, divide 210,000 pesos by 700 setups equals 300 pesos per setup.
Excuse me,
For
miss.
product testing,
Excuse me, miss. We can see there already.
for
We can
product
see-
testing, you divide 300,000 by 4,000 tests, and you'll get a bore of 75 pesos per test. For general factory, you divide 450,000 by 22,500 machine hours, and you'll get a bore of 20 pesos per machine hour. Okay, now let us compute the overhead assigned in every activity done for each product. So unahon nato si regular model. So under labor related, our ABOR is 8 pesos per DLR. Multiply that by 4,000 DLRs assigned to the regular model equals the overhead assigned to the regular model is 32,000 for this first activity na labor related. Next, for machine setups, ABOR is 300 pesos per setup times 250 setups assigned to the regular model equals the 75,000 pesos as the overhead assigned to this activity called machine setups. For product testing, ABOR is 75 pesos per test times the number of tests applied to the regular model, 3,200 setups, equals the overhead assigned for this activity to the regular model is 240,000 pesos. For general factory, ABOR of 20 pesos per machine hour times 15,000 machine hours allocated to the regular model equals the overhead coming from the last activity, general factory, assigned to the regular model, 300,000. So add the overhead of the four activities, 32,000 plus 75,000 plus 240,000 plus 300,000 equals total overhead assigned to the regular model is 647,000. Divide it by 10,000 units produced for the regular model. So the overhead cost per unit of the regular model is 64.7 per unit. So do the same thing for the super model. So, abor sa labor-related, 8 pesos per DLR times 1,000 DLRs used by the supermodel equals 8,000 pesos. For machine setups, multiply abor of 300 pesos per setup by 450 setups done for the supermodel equals 135,000 pesos. For product testing, a bore of 75 pesos per test times 800 tests for the supermodel equals 60,000 pesos. And for general factory, a bore of 20 pesos per machine hour times 7,500 machine hours allocated to supermodel equals 150,000 pesos. Add all the figures on the last column. So 8,000 plus 135,000 plus 60,000 plus 150,000 will give you the total overhead allocated or assigned to the supermodel, 353,000. Divide it by 2,500 units produced for the supermodel. So the resulting overhead per unit ni supermodel is 141 pesos and 20 cents per unit. So now you have an idea how to compute a bore and how to calculate the overhead assigned per unit of each product. So remember that in traditional costing, wherein the company uses either job order costing or process costing, in applying normal costing, in job order costing, you will have to record the materials and labor costs at actual costs, while the overhead is computed at standard or predetermined cost. So the calculation of the predetermined overhead rate, also known as standard overhead rate, is based on the formula estimated annual overhead divided by the cost driver or the allocation base used to compute the predetermined overhead rate. Now, the cost driver refers to anything that drives cost to be incurred. So like if the estimated annual overhead is 500,000 pesos and you divide it by 100,000 units produced per year, so you come up with a predetermined overhead rate of 5 pesos per unit produced. So notice that our divisor or the allocation base used to compute the predetermined overhead rate is number of units produced. So it is volume based, meaning based on production volume ang pag-assign sa overhead to a product or service that you provide to the customers. So if in traditional costing, our allocation base is volume related. Like you use number of units produced per year as your divisor, or you use direct labor hours as your divisor. Because if you come up with a peso amount of overhead per direct labor hour used, then you'll have to know also how much is the direct labor cost for the year. So to get the direct labor cost, you multiply the labor rate per hour by the number of units produced. So even with the use of direct labor hour as your cost driver, it is still multiplied by the number of units produced. So that is activity driven, or that is no, not activity driven, but driven by units produced. So volume factor ang allocation base as cost driver in computing the predetermined overhead rate in traditional costing. But there are other allocation base that you can use to compute the predetermined overhead rate, not just the volume factor. But you can also use non-volume factors such as number of machine hours, number of tests done, or number of setups. So these are examples of non-volume related cost driver. So in traditional costing, you tend to overcost the product since the overhead assigned to the product is based on the units produced. So the overhead applied to production, the more units you produce, the greater is the overhead assigned to the product. The less number of units produced, that would mean lesser amount of overhead assigned to the product. So in other words, in using traditional costing, assigning the indirect cost or the overhead cost will tend to overstate the overhead applied to a greater number of units produced. While if you produce less, you tend to undercost the product because lesser amount of overhead is assigned to the product produced. So if you produce less, lesser lasad ang imong applied overhead for the period. But if you produce more, then you tend to overcost your product because there is greater overhead applied to the units produced in greater quantities. So in order not to overcost or undercost the product, the use of ABC, activity-based costing, is advocated because that would result to a more accurate product costing or service costing. Why is it that ABC will result to an accurate product costing or service costing? Because the overhead assigned to the product or service will be based on the activities done or the work done on the product. For example, your product will be processed in Department A, Department B, and Department C. For each department where you process the product, there will be several activities or work done before the units will be passed on or transferred out to the next department for another processing. So let us assume that in Department A, there will be 2 activities to be done. In Department B, 3 activities to be done. And in Department C, 4 activities to be done. So in Department A, since it has 2 activities to be done in the making of the product, then you shall have 2 activity-based overhead rates to be computed. While in Department B, since there are 3 activities done to process the product, then there will be 3 activity-based overhead rate to be computed. While in Department C, since there are 4 activities to be done in processing the product, that product will be subjected to 4 different activity-based overhead rate. So if you sum up the 2, the 3, and the 4 ABORs, activity-based overhead rates in the 3 departments where the product is processed, so you come up with 9 overhead rates all in all. So in other words, under ABC, the number of activities done in processing the product is also the number of activity-based overhead rate you will compute. So ABC uses several overhead rates or multiple overhead rates will be computed. Unlike in traditional costing that uses either job order or process costing, the company may choose either the plant-wide or company-wide overhead rate or the departmentalized overhead rate. So if the company uses plant-wide overhead rate, there is only one overhead rate to be computed, which is applied by all the departments in that company. So in other words, they use a uniform overhead rate. So ang applied overhead in each department will vary depending on how many units have they completely processed in their department, then multiply it by the overhead per unit, which is uniform all throughout the company. So usara ka overhead rate ang gi-compute. Now, if it is the policy of the company to use departmentalized overhead rate instead of the plant-wide or company-wide overhead rate, each department has its own overhead rate to be used. Kanya-kanya sila pag-compute sa ilang overhead rate. So ang overhead rate ni Department A will be different from the overhead rate used by Department B, and the overhead rate ni C is different from the overhead rate of the other two departments. So the number of departments where the product is being processed is the number of overhead rates that you will compute. So kung 3 ra ka departments, therefore 3 ra sad kabuok ang overhead rates to be computed. So that's under traditional costing. But if you use ABC, activity-based costing, the overhead is assigned not on a per unit produced, but is assigned per activity done by in making that product. So in ABC, there will be several overhead rates to be computed, or multiple overhead rates will be computed. So we call it activity-based overhead rate. So the number of activities done in making the product is also the number of activity-based overhead rate you shall compute. Is that clear? So actually the assignment of overhead, or the overhead applied to the product under ABC, is based on the activities done, not based on the units produced only. So if there are several activities done in making the product, so it is just logical to use or to apply the overhead rate per activity to the product. So not just assign the overhead based on the units produced by the company. Okay, so we use ABC as a supplemental costing method to value the overhead assigned to the product or service that you provide to your customers or clients. So supplement only, meaning in addition to job order costing, you compute the overhead not the traditional way, but using activity-based costing, so that you come up with an accurate cost of producing the product or service. So the use of ABC will lead to the accurate product costs or accurate service costs that you provide to your customers or clients. So let's go over with exercise 7-1. So in most of the exercises and problems here, that involves the calculation of a bore. So let's go to exercise 7-1. There are 13 exercises in chapter 7. So some of the exercises involve multiple choice theory, some for true or false, others for multiple choice involving computations. So exercise 7-1 is a short exercise involving only the calculation of activity-based overhead rate. So what is required in exercise 7-1? So it says, compute for the activity rate, so a bore ang ipakompute, for the fabrication activity cost pool. So given in the opening statement, unsa man ang cost driver ni fabrication? Unsa ang cost driver ni fabrication? It is
10,000 machine hours, Miss.
correct, 10,000 machine hours. Sa fabrication ra ang a bore ipa-compute. Pila man wages and salaries assigned to fabrication. Tanawa ang percentages below. So wages and salaries which amounted to 320,000, what percentage of that amount will be assigned to fabrication?
20%, Miss.
20%. So multiply 320,000 by 20% equals 64,000 pesos. Next, for depreciation, 15% times 220,000 equals 33,000. For occupancy, 5% times 120,000 equals 6,000. Bring down the allocated wages and salaries, depreciation, and occupancy for fabrication, which is 103,000 pesos. That's the total fabrication cost. Divide it by the cost driver, which is 10,000 machine hours. So, a bore ni fabrication is 10 pesos and 30 cents per machine hour. So that's the answer to exercise 7-1. Is that understood?
Yes, Miss.
Okay,
Yes,
let's go
miss.
to the second exercise. So in the second exercise, there are 3 activities there, or 3 activity cost pool: assembly, processing orders, and inspection. So first, you compute a bore, activity-based overhead rate. So for assembly, 1,137,360 divided by 84,000 machine hours equals, a bore ni assembly is 13 pesos and 54 cents per machine hour. For processing orders, 28,479 divided by 1,100 orders equals 25 pesos and 89 centavos per order. For inspection, divide 97,155 by 1,270 inspection hours equals a bore of 76.5 per inspection hour. After getting a bore, multiply it by the cost drivers assigned to each activity. So for assembly, ang atong abor as computed above, 13.54, multiply it by 660 machine hours used for this product. So you'll get the overhead assigned to assembly for this product is 8,936.40. For processing orders, a bore of 25.89 per order multiplied by 50 orders for this product equals overhead assigned to processing ordering activity is 1294.5. For inspection, a bore of 76.5 per inspection hour times 40 inspection hours done for this product equals overhead assigned to inspection is 3,060. So adding 8936.4, 1294.5, and 3,060 gives you the total overhead assigned to this product using ABC, 13,290.9. So that is the answer to letter B. So to answer letter C, compute for the product margin. All the units produced, the 470 units, are assumed to be sold. That is why your total production cost or TPC of 52,075.3 represents also the cost of the jobs sold or cost of goods sold, 52,075.3. So to get the total production cost, add the direct materials used of 18,941, direct labor 19,843.4, and the overhead we calculated in letter B, 13,290.9. So to get the direct material cost, multiply the given material cost per unit that is given on the last paragraph, 40.3 per unit times 470 units produced for product W268 for the year. So you get that amount of 18,941. For direct labor cost, multiply the labor cost per unit, which is given on the last paragraph, 42.22 per unit times 470 units produced for this product equals the direct labor cost of 19,843.4. So to get the amount of sales, multiply 470 units produced and sold times the selling price per unit at 118. So you get the total sales of 55,460 minus the total production cost, which is also your cost of goods sold, since the number of units produced is also the number of units sold. That's why the TPC is equal to its CGS of 52,075.3. So the excess of sales over your cost of goods sold is your product margin of 3,384.7. Is that understood?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, now we go to exercise 7-3. Ang gi-require sa 7-3 is to compute the average cost of product D28K. So, average unit cost ang gipangita. So, first, you get the abor. Abor ni assembly is kani, 12.67. You divide 228,060 by the cost driver of 18,000 machine hours. That is how we got a bore for assembly. For processing orders, you divide 34,068 by the cost driver 1,200 orders will give you a bore of 28.39 per order. For inspection, you divide 125,560 by the cost driver 1720 inspection hours will give you a bore of 73 pesos per machine hour. So after that, multiply a bore by the number of the cost driver assigned to each activity. So like in assembly, our bore was 12.67. Multiply it by 460 machine hours. So you will get the overhead assigned by assembly to this product, 5828.5. Then for processing order, a bore of 28.39 times 80, 80 orders equals 2271.20. So that's the overhead assigned to the product for processing orders. And the last one, 73 pesos ang abor per inspection hour times 10 inspection hours done for this product will give you the overhead assigned by this inspection activity amounting to 730. So add 5828.2, 2271.2, and 730 will give you the total overhead assigned to this product, 8829.4. Divide it by 420 units produced for this product. So you will get the overhead per unit, which is 21.02. So add direct material cost per unit, 48.96 as given on the last paragraph. Then plus the direct labor cost per unit of 25.36 plus the overhead applied per unit as what we computed earlier, 21.02. Hence, the average unit cost per unit is 95.34. So that's the answer for exercise 7-3. Is that understood?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, let's go to exercise 7-4. So exercise 7-4, requirement A is to compute the total material handling cost allocated to the wall mirrors. Round off your answer to the nearest peso. Whereas in letter B, you're asked to compute the total material handling cost allocated to specialty windows. Round off your answer to the nearest peso. So to answer letter A, the material handling cost for the wall mirror. You get first a bore for the wall mirror. The material handling cost amounted to 6123.6. How much of this amount will be allocated to wall mirrors? So for the wall mirrors, as mentioned in letter A, the cost driver is direct labor hours. So to get the total direct labor hours of wall mirrors and specialty windows, it would be, so wall mirrors, they produce 6,000 units, multiply it by 6 DLRs per unit, and you will get how many DLRs will be used to produce the 6,000 wall mirrors?
36,000
Correct.
DLRs.
36,000 direct labor hours to produce the wall mirrors. And to produce the specialty windows, 3,000 units of the specialty windows at 9 direct labor hours per unit equals
27,000
27,000 direct labor hours.
DLRs. Yes. So adding 36,000 DLRs for wall mirrors and 27,000 DLRs for specialty windows, the total DLRs used for production will be
63,000 DLRs, Miss.
3,000 DLRs. DLRs man ang atong cost driver in letter A. So material handling cost 6123.6 divided by the cost driver 63,000 DLRs will give you a bore of 0.0972 per direct labor hour. Multiply this bore by the number of DLRs used by wall mirrors alone, which is 36,000 DLRs, equals the material handling cost assigned to the wall mirror, which is 3,499 pesos. That is the answer to letter A. For letter B, ang atong gipangita is the material handling cost for specialty mirrors. So, ang atong material handling cost amounted to 6123.6. But in letter B, the cost driver is no longer DLRs, but it is unsay iyang cost driver sa letter B?
Material moves, miss.
Material moves. How many material moves for wall mirrors?
500.
500. How many material moves for specialty windows?
100.
100.
So the total material moves is 600.
600.
So
600.
mo na atong cost driver in letter B to get a bore. So our bore is 10.206 per move. Multiply this bore by the number of moves for specialty windows, which is 100 moves. So 10.206 times 100 moves will give you the material handling cost for specialty windows, which is 1,021 pesos, rounded to the nearest peso. Is that understood?
Yes,
Yes,
miss.
miss.
Yes, Miss.
No problem. Exercise 7-5. Okay. So sa 7-5, the requirement are as follows. Letter A, how much cost in total would be allocated to working on engagements activity cost pool? Letter B, how much cost in total would be allocated to business development activity cost pool? And in letter C, how much cost in total would be allocated to other activity cost pool? By the way, did you record this particular discussion today?
Yes, miss. Someone is recording.
Okay, kay para ma-share sa katong maka-online karon. And you can also share it to the other sections. Okay, so to continue, we are given the following indirect costs: wages and salaries, travel expenses, and other expenses, totaling 880,000. So we would like to know how much of these indirect costs and expenses will be assigned to each activity cost pool. So ang atong activity cost pool, we provided one column for each activity. One column for working on engagement, another column for business development, and another column for others. So to allocate wages and salaries, you have the percentage of allocation below. So what portion of the wages and salaries amounting to 620,000 will be allocated or distributed to working on engagement?
60%, Miss.
Correct. 60% times 620,000 equals what?
372,000 pesos.
372,000. The next 50% of the wages and salaries, the next 10% of the wages and salaries will go to business development. So 10% of 620,000 equals 62,000. While the remaining 30% of the wages and salaries will go to others. So 30% of 620,000 equals 186,000. So when you add 372,000, 62,000, and 186,000, that gives you a total wages and salaries of 620,000. Do the same thing for travel expenses and other expenses based on the percentages assigned to each activity. Then bring down the total. So the total cost allocated to working on engagement is 484,000. So this is the answer to letter A. The answer to letter B is 148,000, while the answer to letter C is 248,000. Is that understood?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, 7-6, that's true or false. So I will not discuss it anymore because dali na ang sa theory no masabtan. As you know the answers to each item. So 7-7 is multiple choice theory. So with 7-8, 7-9 is true or false again. Then 7-10 multiple choice theory. 7-11 multiple choice involving computation. So direta mo determine sa inyong computations for each number. Like in exercise 7-11, the answer to number 1 is some other number. So unsa man gyud na ang exact answer to number 1? The answer is 100. The question is, how do you get that answer of 100 pesos? Okay, i-compute. Let me see if you know how to get the supporting computation. Any volunteer? Gabi sad wa say makakompute. Magsalig lang mo unsay akong ihatag. Akong idiktar. Okay, sige. Paloma.
To compute for this, miss, we need to look for the activity rate for material handling cost, which is 200,000 divided by the total number of material moved, which is the cost driver. So 40 plus 160 is 200. So 200,000 divided by 200 is equals to 1,000 pesos per move. Now we multiply 1,000 to 40 material moves for model X, we will get 40,000. And then 40,000 divided by 400 is equals to 100 pesos to each unit of model X.
Okay, correct. So the material handling cost of 200,000 pesos will be divided by pila to? 200?
Yes, miss.
Unsa man ning atong divisor nga 200?
It's the total material moves, miss, of model X and model Y.
So based on material moves atong cost
Cost
driver.
driver, yes, miss.
Okay, so adding 40 moves ni X o 160 moves ni Y, you have a total of 200 material moves for both products. So material handling cost of 200,000 pesos divided by 200 material moves will give you the abor of 200,000 divided by 200. That's 1,000, no? So 1,000 is your abor per material move. I-multiply na sa 40 moves ni Model X will give you the total material handling cost assigned to X at 40,000. Divide 40,000 pesos by 400 units produced ni X. So you will get 100 pesos per unit of model X. Gets new, class?
Yes, miss. By the way, miss, how will we know which cost driver to use in this number since I just used the material moves? Are we also not looking for the direct labor, miss?
Ang kuan manggod, ang overhead nga gi-allocate is material handling costs. So you look for the appropriate cost driver relating to materials. So it should be material moves ang imong cost driver. Kay ang material handling cost has nothing to do with direct labor hours.
Gets, miss. But if it's looking for direct labor hours, what will the problem use as a term to look for it, miss?
Then it would be kung if it is something to do with let us say direct labor cost. Kung direct labor cost ang ipa-allocate, then you will use the direct labor hours for that.
Okay, miss.
Or
Thank you,
ang
miss.
payroll, indirect labor, let us say, kung ang indirect labor cost, i-allocate siya sa based on the direct labor hours used, then kato siya, may mong gamiton as cost driver.
Gets, miss. Thank you, miss.
Parang i-pair nimo ba? Like, kining cost sa material, pag-handle sa materials, unsa may most likely nga cost driver ang dapat gamiton. So kana sang mo relate sa maong cost. Di ba? Okay, what about in number 2? We answered letter D, some other number. How is the 200 computed? Sige, go. Material handling cost of 200,000 divided by
200, Miss.
200 will give you a bore of 1,000. Diba? 1,000 per material move times ang material moves ni Model Y, which is
160, Miss.
will give you the total overhead ni product Y, 160,000. Divide 160,000 by 800 units produced ni Y equals 200 pesos per unit ni Model Y. Isn't it? Nakasunod mo, class, sa computation noon. Okay na.
Yes, Miss.
Nakuha ang 200?
Yes, Miss.
Okay. Next. Number 3. The answer is letter C, 20 pesos. Giun sa pag-compute sa 20 pesos. So inspection cost is 50,000 pesos. Divided by unsa may cost driver atong gamiton? Ang direct labor hours o ang number of inspections?
Number of inspections, Miss.
Okay, the
Number of
most
inspections.
logical cost driver nga ipare sa inspection cost is number of inspections. How many inspections to be done for the 3 models?
50, Miss.
50 inspections. Adding 10, 15, or 25. So 50,000 divided by 50 inspections will give you a bore of 1,000 pesos per inspection. Di ba?
Yes, Miss.
Times how many inspections for model A?
10,
10.
Miss.
So 1,000 times 10 equals
10,000.
10,000. That's the total inspection cost assigned to model A. Divided by how many units produced for model A?
500, Miss.
500 units produced. So what is 10,000 divided by 500 units?
20 pesos, Miss.
So you get 20 pesos per unit. That's why the answer is letter C. What about number 4? Ang inspection cost assigned to model B. Our abor was 1,000 pesos times how many inspections for model B?
15, Miss.
15. 1,000 pesos nga abor times 15 inspections ni model B equals
15.
ang cost allocated to model B is 15,000 pesos. Divided by
Units produced.
1,500 units produced for B. The answer is
10 pesos.
10 pesos per unit. Gets niyo?
Yes, Miss.
Number 5. Kung sa atong computation ni model C. Ang atong abor is 1,000 pesos. Times how many inspections ni C?
25.
25.
5. So the allocated inspection cost ni C is 25,000 pesos. Divide it by 3,000 units produced for Model C equals,
8 pesos and 33 centavos, miss.
correct, 8 pesos and 33 centavos per unit. That's why the answer in number 5 is letter B as in boy. Gets niyo?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
Okay, sa number 6, the answer is D as in dog. Some other number. I will not give you the exact answer. I want you to compute that. Let me see if you can get it right, the exact amount. There are 3 activities there: setup, shipping, and engineering. Compute first the above. So for setups, 180,000 divided by how many setups all in all? 200 plus 300 plus 500.
1,000, miss.
That's 1,000 setups, no? So a bore for setups is
180 pesos.
okay. For shipping cost of 280,000 divided by the cost driver is
Number
number
of
of shipments. What is 400 plus 450 plus 550?
1,400, miss.
So 1 divided by 1,400 shipments. So the abor is pila?
200 pesos.
200 pesos per shipment. For engineering, atong engineering cost is 360,000. I-divide na sa engineering change orders totaling
110.
110 change orders. So pilay abor sa engineering?
3,272 pesos and 73 centavos.
3,000?
Yes,
360,000 divided by 110, miss, is 3,272 and 73 centavos.
Okay, 3272.73. Okay, multiply the abor by the activities done ni Model X. So for setups, 180 times
200.
200 setups equals 36,000. Is that correct?
Yes, miss.
Shipping, 200 times 400 shipments. That's 80,000.
Yes, miss.
Then for engineering, 3272.73 times 30,
98,181 and 9 centavos.
98,181.9. Add all, What is 36,000 plus 80,000 plus 98,181.9?
214,181 pesos and 9 centavos, Miss.
Okay. 214,181.9 divided by 4,000 units produced ni Model X. The answer is
53 pesos and 55 centavos, Miss.
per
Per unit.
Correct. 53.55 per unit. Monay correct answer for number 6. Yawa man siya among the choices, mauna we answered letter D, some other number. Gets new class?
Yes, Miss.
Yes, Miss.
Okay, sa number 7, letter D gihapon, some other number. The correct answer there is 22.91. While in number 8, the correct answer there is letter D, some other number. That other number is 13.79. In number 9,
Excuse me, Miss.
yes,
For 6, 7, 8, Miss, they use the same model for cost, Miss. Like, Model X yapon ang 7 and 8, Miss.
I
Is that a
delete.
correct?
Yes, my correction. Sa number 7, it should be model Y, not X. Yeah, sa number 8, that should be model Z.
Thank you, Miss.
Yeah, sa number 9, not found among the choices given. Utangi lang na diag question mark. Answer is not found among the choices given. I think the correct answer here is 1,200. The number 10, letter D, some other number. And the exact answer for number 10 is 925 pesos per unit. So in exercise 7-12, multiple choice view ratio except for number naray usa ka number diha involving computation. Number 16. Exercise 7-12, number 16. Diba? The answer there is letter D, 117,740. Okay, the computation would be 203,000 pesos divided by 7,000 equals 29 pesos per call. Get the difference between 7,000 and 2,940. So the difference is 4,060. Multiply 4,060 by 29 pesos per call and you get the answer 117,740. Nakasunod sa
Yes,
computation? Okay, so that's all for today. It's time already. So please continue reviewing the answers for the rest of the exercises and problems. Then asynchronous next meeting so that you will have time to go over with the remaining exercises and problems. If in case you have some questions, just PM me through Messenger, okay? So that I can answer it because I will be out of town by next meeting. So by Monday next week, that's March 6 na, no? March 6, that will be your schedule for the second mastery test. Mag-exam ta using Canvas on March 6 for the MW class March 7 for the TTH class. Then by March 8 and 9, mag-discuss ta sa inyong second mastery test nga dala sa review for chapter 1, 2, 3, and 7 for your midterm exam. Okay?
Miss, is our mastery test only for chapter 7?
Your mastery test, no, it will serve as pre-midterm exam. So it will cover na 1, 2, 3, and 7. Para mo review na mo in preparation for the midterm exam. So your second mastery test will cover chapter 1, 2, 3, and 7. Any other questions?
Will the setup still be the same as our first, Miss? Like,
Oh,
online?
on-site ta. Oh, on-site, face-to-face ta, pero the exam will be sa Canvas para you can get the score right away for the second mastery test. And I am expecting you to get a better score this time for the second mastery test compared to the first mastery test. Di ba? Dapat lang mo dako na inyong grado sa second mastery test. Kaya after ana, midterm week na, midterm exam na ta, March 17. Any other questions?
Miss, the passing score for every mastery test, ba, is it 75, Miss?
Basta BSA.
Okay, Miss. Thank you, Miss.
Ang sa BSMA, 2.5 raman inyong cut-off. So, 2.5, 65 ra ang average nga kwaon nga score to get the 2.5. 65 for 2.5, 75 for 2.0. Any other questions? If none, thank you for joining. May I ask the class rep? Kinsa to atong class rep gani? Janice Riquezo is the class rep. Janice?
Yes, Miss. Yes, Miss.
The recorded discussion for today, kindly share it to the other groups.
Okay, Miss.
Okay, basig wa nako murag wala mi ka-discuss sa exercise 7-11, wa na mo mahumantanan sa 7-11 with the previous class. So at least naa sila'y copy sa atong discussion. So share the recorded discussion with all the other groups, including the TTH groups. Okay?
Yes, Miss. Okay, Miss.
Thank you. Any other questions, class? Asynchronous ta next meeting ha para maka-review gyud mo sa tanang exercises ug problems sa chapter 7. So just in case na amoy question, pwede ra ko ninyo i-PM through Messenger. Okay?
Yes, Miss. Thank you, Miss.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Miss.
Bye. Thank you,
Thank
Miss.
you, Miss.
Thank you, Miss. Goodbye.